Aloha, I'm Ryan Kalei-Suji, joined by Yunji Denise, and welcome to this special edition of Spotlight Now featuring the two candidates for Hawaii County Mayor. The format of this discussion between the candidates is not a debate, but rather a conversation about the topics impacting Hawaii Island.
We will also include questions submitted by you, our viewers, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. We have not shared the questions or the topics with the campaigns. The candidates will not be timed. However, each will be allowed to provide a 1-minute closing statement.
Now, following our conversation, Hawaii News Now political analyst Colin Moore will join us for a post-discussion analysis and commentary.
So let's meet the candidates. Mitch Roth is seeking a second term as Hawaii County Mayor after winning the seat in 2020. He's built a career in law enforcement, serving 8 years as Hawaii County prosecutor. He was a deputy prosecutor on the Big Island and in Honolulu before that. The 59-year-old is a graduate of UH Manoa and Whittier Law School. He has 3 adult children and lives in Hilo with his wife, Noriko.
Dr. Kimo Alameda is a psychologist born on the Big Island where he grew up on a ranch in Waiakea. He's a graduate of Hawaii Pacific University and UH Manoa and earned a doctorate at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Alameda has worked extensively in public health and led the Hawaii County Fentanyl Task Force. He recently lost his wife, Star, after nearly 3 decades of marriage. The 54-year-old has 7 children from age 26 to a high school freshman.
We welcome in now Hawaii County Mayor Mitch Roth as well as Dr. Kimo Alameda. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate you coming down. Now, just a reminder that we will not be placing a time limit on your responses, but we do ask that you be respectful of the time as we have a lot of topics to get to. And so let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with the economy. We had opened up this discussion to some of our viewers, and a lot of the questions that came back to us were regarding the economy. And so that's where we want to start. I want to start with you, Dr. Alameda, and asking this question. You know, whenever there's elections, there seems to be this buzzword about diversifying the economy, and yet we continue to be very heavily reliant on tourism. How would you specifically work to diversify Hawaii Island's economy?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, you know, the construction industry is key. And that if we could get permits out in time, and we can get the construction industry to get up and running, that in itself will really stimulate the economy. So that's why I was a big fan of streamlining the process, looking at maybe third-party reviews or conditional approvals. Something has to be done. Now I know the current administration will say, you know, it's better, it's the best in the state. They went from worst in the country, but it's basically the best of the worst. It's not a good matrix to measure ourselves on. We need to do better, and that in itself will stimulate the economy. But of course, we can diversify as well, right? We can look at ag. We can look at a different type of tourism, okay? Because tourism is the backbone of our state, but we can have different tourists. So I'm excited to be here and to offer, you know, different suggestions and basically enthusiasm, because that's what's lacking as well.
Mayor Roth, I want to give you a chance to respond. You heard some of the talk about construction and where your administration has made those improvements, but what about the economy specifically and diversifying it based on what you've already done in the last 4 years?
Sure. Let me just address the whole issue about the permits and building. You know, right now we have all the major unions for building. We have the carpenters, we have the operating engineers, we have the general contractors, the plumbers and pipe fitters, the laborers. They're all supporting us because there's a lot of work that's happening. When you look at the permits that are out there in the system, you know, we are issuing more housing permits than any other island. In the last 4 years, we went from about 619 to over 1,000 permits a year moving forward. You know, we are looking at diversification. We're not going to get rid of tourism, but we need to look at other things. And so we have been looking into, for example, energy, bringing in different kinds of energy sources, looking at the STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics kinds of jobs that are out there, working together with the schools, with students to create these different kinds of opportunities moving forward. And we're also looking at agriculture as well.
I want to ask you now about homelessness. Let's go to our viewer question here. Grace Larson sending in this one to us saying, what is your 5-year plan to solve homelessness and affordable housing? Let's take the first half of that, of course, and that is homelessness. You have had a lot of improvements at the point in time count, sort of different than the rest of the state. What do you attribute the successes you've had to? And at the same time, people who live in many parts of the Big Island will say that they don't feel that improvement.
Sure. We started with over 1,000 people who are homeless this last year. The point in time count showed a 28% decrease. Well, 28% from 1,000 is 280, so there's still a lot of homeless people there. We have been working on it. We actually came in, we brought a whole bunch of different people together, and we came up with a plan, a 13-point plan. We've been working together with different agencies. We've actually been funding different agencies, and you're seeing it make a difference. We have also, working with some agencies that are helping reunite people with their families. We have one group, Task Force 808, that's reunited over 100 people so far this year since February back to their families on the mainland. So there's a lot of work. There's still a lot of work to do. We have some Kahalis that we're working with the governor on. We have some homeless shelters that we're working on coming up as well. One is in Kona. They're working on it. They've been working for the last year on the infrastructure. Walls should be going up pretty soon. We're also working on the Hilo Memorial Hospital. A lot of work happening there. $13 million that we got from our U.S. Senate delegation, Mazie Hirono and Brian Schatz. So a lot of things are happening and more to come.
Dr. Alameda, the mayor just laid out a litany of things that are going right. How do you feel like homelessness is going?
I know Mayor keeps saying that there's a 28% decrease in homelessness, but the reality is we don't see it. Okay, people can just drive in Hilo, Kona, Waimea, Ka'u, and they'll see homeless all over the place. You got to remember that was a point in time count. It was a point in time. And so it's not a true reflection of what we're seeing. That's number one. Number two is our administration will be also concerned about the almost homeless. You see, because people are homeless not because they ran out of money. Most people are homeless because they ran out of relationships. They burn bridges. And so this administration got to pay attention to a drug addiction. They got to pay attention to mental health because that's the issue, right? To me, that's the issue, and our administration will pay attention to those issues. So,
can I just kind of respond? Especially, we talk about mental health. Our administration has actually done quite a bit more than other administrations have. We have been funding the drug clinics, through our homeless funds. We have been setting up, we've been teaching our police officers. We just did a class, actually in a class right now, our 5th class with crisis intervention training with our police officers. We have an emergency mental health clinic that is opening. It's out for bid right now, so we'll have a 24-hour place where people can come in. So we have actually been doing these things already, as well as holding mental health summits and things like that. So it's nothing new than what we're really doing.
Can I say, though, the almost homeless, right? The kupuna that's one paycheck away from being homeless, right? The foster child that's ready to age out of the system that has no place to go. Okay, the veteran who has PTSD that needs some support. I mean, this is the group that will be homeless if you don't pay attention to them, and this administration has done very little to pay attention to that group.
Well, beyond just the actual homelessness, another issue that comes up and is tied to this is affordable housing, and it's something that every county in the state is grappling with. But there is a new law now that gives counties the authority to regulate and even phase out short-term rentals. This is designed in part to create more long-term affordable housing. So I want to start with you, Mayor Roth. Would you exercise this power, and can you see Hawaii County looking to do more of what this law now allows?
So, at the current time, our council is working on a short-term vacation rental bill. It is going through the process right now. We're supporting, certain changes, especially changes that we're looking at the online platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo. We want to have better control over them to make sure that people are paying attention. In addition, we just passed a bill and just signed it into law the other day for accessory dwelling units, otherwise known as ohana housing, to make sure that we're doing some things there. And when you look at our affordable housing, and affordable housing is a term that HUD uses, we went from 1,243 units in the pipeline to now over 8,100 in the pipeline. We're seeing, you know, 2 of those big units, 100 units coming up right above Costco and Kona. That should be opening in the next week or 2, as well as one across the University of Hawaii in Hilo. We just broke ground on another. So we're starting to see housing actually become a reality.
I want to ask you, Dr. Alameda, about the affordable housing question, but also about this new law. Is that something that you would maybe exercise if given the opportunity to be elected mayor?
I got to tell you, there's a law in 2018, and short-term vacation rentals is one issue, but you know what's a bigger issue? The illegal short-term vacation rentals, which is all over the place. Now, if this administration had put any kind of enforcement, maybe we would have been at a better place, but this administration has done nothing to curb those illegal vacation rentals, and they're taking up the rental space. So that's one of our first orders of business is enforcement. Now, legal vacation rentals, short-term, you know, there's a place for that, right? It has to be zoned correctly, and our administration, we would look at that critically because those also might impact our neighborhoods, right? You get somebody that you don't know, they're walking up and down on the streets, there's no background checks, all of a sudden it kind of changes the fabric of the community. So our Big Island community, you know, our communities are tight, and so they want to have a better awareness of what the impacts will be.
Yeah, and I just want to say, we have been enforcing the law to the best we can. The problem with the current law is there's lots of loopholes, and that's why this law is so important to fix.
I want to get to an issue that, Mayor, you have said keeps you up at night, and that is the cesspool and wastewater treatment facility. 2 things that but are interconnected. And Dr. Alameda, we'll start with you. There are 50,000 cesspools on Hawaii Island, supposed to be phased out by 2050, which will be here before you know it. And we know that that cost is astronomical. That combined with the wastewater treatment plant in Hilo, which is not necessarily in the best shape by all accounts. What do you think the county can do to expand the sewer service to residents and also deal with the Hilo wastewater treatment plant?
Right. Well, currently the county's trying to do the best they can with what they got, right? But it's a day late and a dollar short. We're in the 4th quarter of this 4-quarter, you know, game, if you will. And Big Island people, they're very smart. They know that you cannot, you know, all of a sudden pave roads and sign bills right before the election, right? So this has been an issue from day one. Wastewater. Okay, now we know cesspool conversion is going to be a big issue for the next administration. As mayor, we can advocate with the feds and the state and say, you know what, this is statistically impossible. We have only like about 5 or 6 engineers who can provide the stamp, right? And we don't even know if the septic system is the best system to transition to. Also, people are telling me that in Mauka areas, the earth has natural filtration. So this whole mandate island-wide might be misleading. The second thing with the wastewater treatment center, and we talked about it in our previous interview, is that this administration had made that a priority, and only now, again, right before the election, bids went out, and they received bids came back to say that now they're going to fix it. Okay, so what's going to get if this administration is reelected? There's no motivation for change. Because they're going to be terming out.
Let's let you have a chance to respond.
So first off, you know, we've been working on this since day one. It takes a while to get these large plans made. The plans are like as big as this desk right here and about this high. So it took a while to go through procurement to get the engineers. So yeah, you know, that's how government works. We have to go through things, and it's not the 4th quarter. I'm looking at this as halftime. You know, something that came up a couple of weeks ago, we were in Puna, and one of the things that Kimo said is that, you know, Puna has like 30,000 cesspools, and he said, well, you know, if it hasn't been done in 10 years, the county should pay for that. Well, if we're just looking at Puna for the wastewater facilities, we're looking between $4 and maybe $13–14 billion. And the question is, how do you pay for it? We've been working with the feds, we've been working with the states. If we're going to do just that, it's not about doubling, tripling, quadrupling. It may be 5–6 times. And I bet most of the viewers don't even want their taxes doubled. You know, we have been working on wastewater as far as the treatment facility. That's coming along. We have a bid out. We should be issuing that bid, and we should be starting work within the next couple of months.
I want to continue on with infrastructure. Another more specific area, though, that we want to ask you about is related to East Hawaii, and that's Banyan Drive. And now we know that this is an area that is controlled and managed by the state of Hawaii, but whoever is serving in the capacity of mayor would have to work with the county. We've heard plans for many administrations over time of what this area could become, the significance that it plays to East Hawaii and the tourism industry on that side of the island. Mayor, I want to start off with you. What what specifically do you have a vision for Banyan Drive, and how would you work with the state to improve the conditions right now?
Yeah, so there's actually been plans that have gone through different administrations, doing something with that golf course, maybe turning that into a place where we have a recreation center where people can come and they're actually using it, maybe a hula halal, stage, something to recognize the culture of paddling and things like that. We have been working very closely with Department of Land and Natural Resources. We're trying to see if maybe we can get that land to come to the county rather than it being in the state's hands. So we're working with the DLNR to take down Uncle Billy's. So a lot of work is happening. So that's some of the ideas.
Dr. Alameda, your thoughts about the future of Banyan Drive?
Yeah, thank you. In the Kano administration, there was a plan drafted, and there was a Banyan Drive Advisory Committee, and in the Kim administration, it got dropped and it never got revisited. Our administration will revisit that plan and that advisory committee, and they had some great ideas. A little bit about what Mitch mentioned, but even more detailed, like putting lights, right? Because that's the center of Hilo. When tourists come, that's our main attraction, and it's very sad. If you drive there now, you're not going to feel safe, number one, and it doesn't feel like the Hawaii that we know, that we grew up with. So I would revisit the plan. I would get that advisory committee to get back on track and pick up on where we left off. That place needs to be the heartbeat of Hilo.
Yeah, and I think we do have an advisory committee right now.
Let's move on to something that you have criticized the mayor on, and that is devoting too many resources to East Hawaii versus West Hawaii. What would you do differently? Where do you think there needs to be more investment on the west side of the island?
Well, first, with my cabinet, most of the development is on the west side. So, we should be looking for a planning director from that side. And that's just one of many ideas, right? The other idea is we should take turns. So, for example, right now there's, love Puna, I get family in Puna, and there's a park that wants to be built in Puna. Yet, the west side has never had a park built yet. So we did the Kanoi Park, we did the Paneapa Park, we did some upgrades in Waimea, and you want to do another park in East Hawaii? Great, let's do it simultaneously then. But don't leave West Hawaii out one more time.
Do you think that you've done enough for West Hawaii? Do you think these criticisms are fair?
So I don't think they're fair. One, we have 3 different directors that are on the West Hawaii side. Our directors are there. I'm there at least once a week. Our directors are there regularly on the West Hawaii side. We've put a lot of money. If you look at the roads that are and the infrastructure that's coming up on the West Hawaii side, there's a lot of stuff, and it's happening all across the county. As far as parks, we came in, there was 302 park facilities with a maintenance and repair budget of $450,000. That is not enough. We're up to $6 million. We've been doing work all across the county, but we've been working on West Hawaii parks as well as restanding up the West Hawaii Regional Park District. So we're working on that at this time to make sure that can happen. One of the things we're talking about with wastewater is taking R1 from our wastewater treatment facility water. That's water that you can use to water the grass. And so we're looking at turning our wastewater facility on the Kona side into R1 reusable water for our West Hawaii Regional Park.
Can I add real quickly? It's not just parks and it's not just water. Okay, there's traffic congestion in Kona that has caused so much stress upon residents. There's also a hospital that we can advocate for that has to happen yesterday. Okay, people who get sick on the Kailua side, to get to the south side, there's fatalities that are occurring right now because we don't have a hospital on the north side. We got to advocate for that.
And if I can go, we have been advocating, and there's some really exciting news that is happening on the West Hawaii side with a hospital. We're, pretty close. I think it's a matter of funding. There's actually a place for a hospital. I understand Queens owns a lot right below Costco, so that's happening. A lot of the traffic that Kimo's talking about is actually on state roads. We do advocate with the state on making some fixes, but a lot of them are state roads versus the county roads.
What I hear him saying is we are doing everything that we can, and we're doing it as fast as we can. What do you think you could actually do to make all of these issues move along more quickly?
Well, I don't think there's chemistry at the cabinet. I don't think they work together. I think they look tired. These are colleagues of mine as well, because I work for the county. And the line staff. I mean, you got 3 unions that have endorsed us. There's only 4 unions that work for the county, right? So you got the police that endorsed us, you got HGA, which is the white collar workers, and you got UPW, which is the blue collar workers. They're not feeling the love. So if you want to improve, you know, if you want to get anything really substantially done in the county, you gotta connect with the line staff. And right now the line staff is asking for a new head coach. Okay, and they're begging, they're pleading with the public. We want a new head coach because, you know, motivation, they're not going to be motivated if it's the status quo. And so our campaign is really advocating that the status quo has got to go. So,
you know, first off, the unions didn't endorse me because I didn't agree to pay 25% hazard pay to every union worker, actually to every county employee. I could have taken $80,000 for myself if we did this. This is a lot of money. We're talking over $75 million. And you know, that takes away from a lot of the work. During COVID, there was a lot of things that were happening. We tried to take care of the community. I think we did a pretty good job of taking care of the community and keeping the community safe. As far as the line workers, I don't think it's the line workers. I think it's the union leaders that are looking at the money and not really what's going on with the workers.
And that's not true. I get texts all the time.
Well, I want to, you know, this kind of leads into our next topic, and that is the COVID pandemic hazard pay that you referenced and you gave a response to. So I do want to turn to you, Dr. Alameda. If given the opportunity to serve as mayor, you heard the mayor say it's about $75 million. Where would that money come from, and how would you be able to afford the pay for the workers?
Thank you for that, Ryan. Well, the money was there, and the money was allocated for hazard pay. And the mayor has said this in many debates already. He just wanted to use the money for other reasons. He wanted to use the money to provide food for families. But then the SNAP benefits that the state provided did that already. He wanted to use the money to prevent evictions. But then there was a law, Act 57, that made it a point that landlords don't evict during the time. He wanted to, you know, so he wanted to use the money for other means that was already covered by either the feds or the state. So why did he end up using what's contractually obligated funds for our union workers, because they put themselves at risk? Now, he said we got the safest, you know, county in the state, but guess who made them safe? Those county workers who were making sure that everybody was 6 feet apart, making sure that everybody had masks, making sure that everything was sanitized. They put themselves at risk, and it's contractually obligated. So we got to find the money. Okay, it's there. And that's the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do an audit of where the money went. Thank you.
Mary, just give you a chance to respond to that.
Sure. You know, there's a couple of things there. Our budget is online. I know a couple of months ago, but last month we're at another forum, and Kimo said he hadn't even looked at the budget. That worries me a little bit. The money that came was not specifically set aside for hazard pay. Neither Kauai nor Honolulu paid the hazard pay. We were kind of all in the same boat. We're looking and said, hey, there's different levels of hazard pay. We are in negotiations, but that 25% that the unions were asking for is really difficult to put off when we had people that were out of work. We had people that were trying to survive. We had people that, you know, were worried about where their next meal were coming from. So to say that's what the money was for, that's not what the money was for. And you can ask the other mayors, you could take a look at what those things are. But it's kind of alarming that, you know, Kimo's been talking throughout this campaign about we should have been doing this, we should have been doing this, we should have been doing, all these things cost money. So far, I've heard billions of dollars of money that's going to cost the state to do these things. And I haven't seen where those funds are going to come from, other than raising taxes.
So there's about $1 billion in our budget by the time the next administration will take office. Okay, we know that about 70% goes to salary and wages, so that's maybe about $300 million left. Okay, and then there's the capital budget as well that we use bonds for. Now the question is, and I've seen the budget, but what viewers want to see, not just the budget, they want to see how the money is allocated. That's not online. We don't know where the money is going. And so there's something called the fund balance. That's where, like, hey, if you don't hire this position, you get an extra grant, all of a sudden it goes into this fund balance. We don't know what the accurate number is. I've been trying to get, you know, information from the county. They can't tell me. It could be as high as $100 million. So this is what I'm saying about the budget. Nobody really knows where it's at.
So that fund budget also comes up every year at the council. We tell them exactly how much it is, about $40–50 million. There's a certain amount that you have to have on storage for accounting purposes to get your bond ratings, and we're in the level that we have our highest bond rating ever right now. We came in, the question was, where are you going to be with the finance? Are you going to be able to keep the county afloat? That was a question 4 years ago. We have kept the county afloat, and we're in the best position we've been in.
Let's move on to another issue. You exercised your emergency powers at one point to limit access to Waipio Valley. Long term, what should happen to access to the valley?
So, and we're still using those emergency powers. There was a study said there was some danger in the road. We're fixing the road. Really, what I'd like to see is the community working together with us, and we have been working together with them. There's some models that we've seen, like on Kauai, where they've done some things. There's some things that they're doing in Palolo Valley, in North Kohala. But we really want to make sure that the community's voice is heard. Unfortunately, there's a couple of different sides of those community voices, and so we've been trying to bring them together. I think it's been working quite well. I think most of the people who are down there have been telling us it's working well, but it started off kind of rocky because there was differing opinions.
Okay.
Oh, it's still rocky. It's super rocky. I mean, I've been down there. I get family in Waipio, and it's not good. They're not happy. So first you got to look at, kind of like a hierarchy. The landowners, you got to talk to the landowners. And then you got the farmers, and then you got the surfers, and you get the tourists. Right? This administration had put the tourists in front of the landowners, right? And that has caused some problems. They put the surfers. So you need a psychologist, okay, to get in there and bring these people together. That's my skill set, right? I'm a convener. I can bring differences together, and I can get people to align. And that's another reason why I'm running. I think my skill set is much needed right now.
Yeah, I just want to answer that because we did not put the tourists. As a matter of fact, it's very difficult for tourists to get in there. We have a lot of the tour companies that have been really upset with us because we haven't been letting, people down there. We've been making sure that if they're going to go down, they have to have certain things. We've actually put the community first, and we have been talking to everybody.
Well, we want to bring up another viewer question that was submitted to us before we started this, and that is regarding TMT. The question is, do you feel that TMT should be built? Of course, this is an issue that really got the attention of everyone in the state a few years back and really made headlines throughout the world. I want to start off with you, Dr. Alameda. Where do you stand on the construction of the 30-meter telescope?
Certainly. When people ask me that, I say, which version? The 2019 version or the 2024 version? Because the 2024 version is much different. I was a protector in 2019. Mitch wasn't. He was like, let's just do it, right? I'm glad they stood up for their rights because now we have negotiation power, right? There's 13 telescopes on that mountain. They took down 2. They said they was going to take down 5 or 6. Okay, that has got to happen. We have to renegotiate $1. Mitch was okay with $1 a year. Okay, that's potential revenue. Right? So we're going to have to renegotiate $1. You're going to have to protect the cultural sites, over 200 cultural sites. You're going to have to protect the endangered species. And you're going to have to put in a light of mind budget of when it's going to be decommissioned. I want to know the year, and I want to see a light of mind budget. Now, check this out. I've spoken to the astronomers, and they said, Kimo, that's fair. And so they're willing to at least consider it. So what I bring to the table is negotiation. I put my business hat on, and it says, hey, if you think that's the best mountain for the best science, then Big Island people would want also to benefit from that.
Sorry, before I allow you to respond, I just want to get some clarity here. So you're asking for a decommission date of the 30-meter telescope or the other telescopes?
Well, decommission date of the 30-meter telescope, because the 13 telescopes, nobody have asked that question. Nobody has an end game on these developments.
And so if all those requirements that you kind of laid out, some of the things that you'd like to see, if those do come to pass, you would support the construction?
I would support a discussion on it, because it's a process, right? You also got to include the Native Hawaiians as well.
Mayor, I'll let you respond to this question.
So first off, I think the astronomy industry is very valuable to Hawaii, especially if we're looking at jobs for our kids that, in the STEAM industry, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Astronomy is one of the best places, I think, for them to get that kind of job, to keep them in Hawaii. We have a hard time keeping our kids here because they're going other places. We need to make sure we have those jobs, that diversification that we talked about earlier. So I think astronomy is very important. I think that TMT is good for our island, so I support that. I've never, I think I've said, oh, the dollar issue, but that's a whole different matter. I think if you look at what we're going to do for our future, if we're going to keep our Hawaiian kids here, we're going to keep our kids here, we need to have jobs for them in the future. Back in 2015, when I talk about history, I was the prosecuting attorney. The first cases came, and you may recall that I asked for ho'oponopono, for people to get together, rather than putting people in jail and prosecuting them. I said, ho'oponopono is a better idea. Let's get to some agreements. Unfortunately, for whatever reasons, they could not come together in ho'oponopono. What happened is they weren't talking, and then we had the next round. And the next round, after that, TMT's actually been doing some things a lot differently. Now they're going out and they're talking, they're listening. And I think if we started that way, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in currently.
Let me ask you about, we started talking about cesspools. Let's talk about waste of another kind, and that is trash. The Hawaii Island has a huge trash problem. There's not adequate recycling, and the South Hilo sanitary landfill nearing the end of its capacity. Similar situation on the west side of the island as well. What should happen to trash on the Big Island, and is there a place for it? Yeah, so we went out and we did a request for information, an RFI. And so we've got that information back. We're putting out an RFP, a request for proposals. I think there's a lot of different options. One is waste to energy. Kimo will talk about the possibility of another landfill. It's probably not likely that we're going to have another landfill or having our trash shipped. We have to go through different Department of Health rules and change some of those rules. I think some of the things that we're looking at in the future, waste to energy, whether we're taking that waste and making electricity, hydrogen, or some other things, I think those are some possibilities. Okay, what do you think should happen to all the trash that the island is making and has nowhere to put?
I know, every county is dealing with this as well, right? But first we got to support our reduce, reuse, recycle programs. Okay, we need to start there. We need to educate people on proper usage of materials. Secondly, we should be really revisiting this idea of barging it, because you can do three things. You can barge it, you can burn it, and right now you could barge it and burn it. So you could barge it to Oahu, or you could burn. You could bring back the trash, okay, or you could bury it. But yeah, we don't want to bury it. So we need to consider waste to energy. I think that's good. But it's an issue for every county, and I'm curious to see what Kauai and Oahu will be doing as well. But we should be going to Singapore and other places, which is much more condensed, more higher density, and they're doing some remarkable things. So we need to look there as well.
All right, we want to bring in another viewer question, and this is regarding party affiliation. Mayor, we're going to start off with you. The question that was submitted by our viewer asked, please state the political party please state the political party you registered for and how you voted in 2020.
So I did not register for a party. I really have a hard time with party politics. I think it's ideas versus a party. And what we see nationally is that one side has a good idea, the other side doesn't matter what they think about it, they poo-poo it. The other side has a good idea, the other side poo-poos it. So I really don't have a party affiliation. I look at ideas and I look at the people that are there.
Dr. Alubile?
Sure. I was taught by my parents, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So you need to declare. Okay, so my supporters, they're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're Green Party, they get Aloha Aina Party, we get independents. I was born and raised Democrat, and I'm not going to just change just for political purposes. But I got to tell you, my views are conservative views. My approach to a problem is person-centered. So it's not driven by party. But you got to stand for something, right? If not, you fall for anything.
Well, what I wanted to check, though, is neither of you said who you voted for in 2020, and that was the viewer's question. The political party and what presidential candidate you voted for. Was it Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
In 2020, I voted for Joe Biden.
Same.
Okay. Do you want to share who you're going to vote for this time around? I'm just curious now.
I'm really not sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, my sons are voting for Donald Trump, and I think my daughters are going to vote for Kamala. They want to see that women break that glass ceiling. So for me, we'll see. We'll see.
Divided house. All right, let's get to another viewer question. This one is from Jenilyn, and she's asking, what makes you stand out from your opponent? Dr. Alameda, we'll start with you.
Well, I think I bring a lot of energy to the table. You know, I'm a psychologist, so that I have a different approach to solving problems. You know, I'm very inclusive. Let's face it, too, on the beginning, we do have a racial divide. There is some racial tension. There's an East-West tension. There's a party tension. And you need somebody to bring people together. And I've been, all my life, that's what I've been doing, bringing people together. And people around me feel safe. I feel like, you know, the people that I'll bring in on the cabinet will be geographically equitable. And you know, right now this administration, you know, they need energy. I mean, you cannot wait to right before the election to pave a road or to sign a bill. And so we'll start from day one, and it'll be evident by our results.
And Mr. Mayor, what do you say to Jenilyn? What makes you stand out from your opponent?
Well, first off, I'm a problem solver, and I actually have experience making positive change through county government. When I was a prosecutor, I started the first community-oriented prosecution program in the state, successfully started our weed and seed program on Hawaii Island, became one of the most successful weed and seed programs. I successfully started our restorative justice program, the first restorative justice program in a prosecutor's office in the United States. Numerous different programs there. If you look at the work we've done, we've actually made positive change on Hawaii County, where we're talking about reducing the number of homelessness we talk to, improving our our permitting system, increasing the number of houses in the affordable housing pipeline, doubling the amount of roads that we've paved. I actually have the experience of actually making positive change that, you know, has made a difference. You know, Kimo likes to talk about the fentanyl task force. They came and we started that in our administration.
I want to also get to of course, a topic that made headlines last year, and that's regarding wildfires and some of the changes that we're seeing just overall with the landscapes in our communities. Mayor, I'll start with you. Of course, the tragedy in Lahaina got everyone's attention, but during that time, there were also fires that were happening in Waikoloa. What are your plans to address this growing concern for many people on the island?
Yeah, we've actually been doing a lot of work on fire-wise, making sure that the community is aware, making sure that our teams are doing better. We did really well. We brought FEMA in for some training, and one of the things that FEMA says is that, you know, our civil defense right now and our response is some of the best in the nation. That doesn't mean we're where we want to be. We always want to strive to be better, and so we have been striving to be better. We've done a lot of work, for example, with Department of Transportation, making sure that there's fire breaks that have been built. We've been working with the community for the same sorts of things. We've been working with landowners to make sure that we have an emergency access road that's being built. And you know, basically, we've improved our communication as far as what happens during a civil defense emergency. It used to be very contained. We're now, you know, getting that out there. Our civil defense has an all hazards map where people can go online and see where things are and what's happening. So we continue to improve the system, but we already have made a lot of real positive changes.
Dr. Alameda, your thoughts on
so
wildfires?
we can do way better. I've been doing community talk stories for about 2 years now, and you know, there's hot spots on the island, right? Ka'u, Kohala, Waikoloa, you know, where there's access issues, you know, the one road in, one road out, so that's a concern. Also, there's places where, you know, we got to check the fire hydrants, we got to make sure that there's a water reservoir, we got to make sure that there's correct fire breaks. And, you know, we should also be promoting getting everybody on the Starlink so that when there's an emergency, boom, they have it on their phone. I mean, it's still under 5%. Administration has to continue to promote that because that's super important. There's so much more that can be done.
We want to have a little fun and do a little lightning round with you, get to know you a little bit better. So we'll ask each of you, these will be quick. What's your favorite Big Island beach?
Favorite Big Island beach, probably Mauna Kea.
Okay.
Favorite Big Island beach, probably 4 miles.
Okay, next question. What Big Island omiyage gift would you take to friends outside of the Big Island?
Yeah, what'd you bring us?
Well, you know, Big Island candies is pretty famous, but I'd probably start there.
Yeah. Mayor?
Oh boy, there's so many Big Island candies, Big Island delights, Two Ladies Kitchen.
You got us landing off a lot, Mayor.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what's Okay. What time do you go to bed, and what is your evening routine?
So I'm usually getting to bed about 11 o'clock at night. And after going through everything that I need to go through for work, I actually do this Duolingo, studying Japanese, or do something to keep my mind motivated.
Oh, I like that. All right. What time do you go to bed? What's your evening routine?
Yeah, I mean, my evening, with the passing of my late wife, our routine was pretty much, we gather all the kids, make sure everybody, because I have 7 kids, right? So make sure they're ready for the next day, make sure backpacks are ready, that they had a good night, and then, we have family prayer, kind of highlight the positives of the day, and then kind of things to be aware of for tomorrow. Now, we do the same thing, but I got my daughter that's kind of leading the way in that, and so it's the same structure, same routine. And so I get to bed about by 12. I get up about 5:30.
Okay, last question. We're going to have a scenario for you. You have to go to Kohala from Hilo. Are you taking Saddle Road or Hamakua Coast? What's your route of choice?
I take both. It really depends on what's going on. If I need to get there quicker, I think I go over Saddle Road. But if I have a little bit of extra time where I can stop into places, I'll take the other way.
Yeah, for sure. I like to do both and kind of rotate it because I like to see what's happening in Hamakua, especially now.
Yeah. Okay.
I do love that Hamakua Drive. All right, well, it is time now for our closing statements. The time goes fast. Each of you will be given 1 minute to provide a 1-minute final message to our viewers. We did do a Jankempo before we went live this afternoon to determine the order. Mayor Roth was the winner and chose to go second. So, Dr. Alameda, you have the floor.
Sure. Well, I'd like to thank all the Big Islanders, right, for tuning in and, make sure you register to vote. Because I can assure you that, I've not made much promises, but what I can promise is that we'll bring more transparency to this government. We'll bring greater energy to this government. We'll bring better communication, okay? And things will get done on day one. We won't wait, to the final buzzer just for show. Born and raised on the Big Island, go back generations. My wife as well, and so I'm committed to this place. It doesn't matter where you're born. It matters to me where you're gonna die. And we're going to rest our Evie. My family will spirit our ashes there on that island, and so I'm super committed. So the decisions that we will make, I'll be thinking long term because that's where I'm going to end up spreading my ashes. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Roth, you have the final word.
Well, I want to thank you all. Thank Kimo. It's funny going through this. It always feels like I'm getting attacked on things, and it feels like watching a football game where someone's criticizing the coach from the sideline. But if you look at things that we've done, we've actually made a difference. We lowered poverty according to Aloha United Way, not according to me. We lowered the homeless numbers, not according to me, but according to the point in time count that Kimo works with. We improved our permitting system according to U-Hero. So if you look at different things, we have made a lot of differences. And if you look at what Kimo's been attacking us on, there's still no way of paying for it without doubling, tripling, or quadrupling your taxes. So thank you very much.
Well, we thank you, gentlemen, for both being here and being a part of this important discussion. We appreciate you both making the time and coming over here to Oahu to talk about things on the Big Island.
Coming up next, Hawaii News Now political analyst Colin Moore joins us to give us his thoughts on our conversation with the two candidates and weigh in on the race. This special edition of Spotlight Now continues right after this. Spotlight Now. Joining us live in the studio is political analyst Colin Moore to break down our conversation with Mayor Mitch Roth and Dr. Kimo Alameda. So, Colin, first impressions, how do you think they did?
I think they both did well. I mean, they both brought a lot of energy to this debate. I think anyone watching got a real sense of who these candidates are. I mean, Kimo Alameda has a lot of charisma. He really connects with people. He talks about forming relationships, networks, drawing on his experience as a psychologist. Mitch Roth comes across as the incumbent. I mean, he's a very process-oriented candidate. He loves to talk about numbers and statistics. He can tell you about exactly how many parks there are on the Big Island. And so, I mean, I really think that represents who these candidates are. Someone who is very focused on the technical details, brings a lot of experience, someone who is really concerned about relationships and wants to make change.
Was there anything that stood out or maybe even surprised you that either of the candidate may have mentioned during this time?
Well, I think one question was your question about who they voted for in the presidential election. I think that caught them a little off guard. I was a little surprised that neither one of them really said forcefully that they were a Democrat. Now, my understanding of that both of these candidates are relatively conservative, but even so, Big Island is a very Democratic place. You know, you think at least one of the candidates would have said, I'm a proud Democrat. But I think they also suspect that some of the voters out there, some of the persuadable voters are more conservative, Republican voters, people who might have voted for Junior Tupai. So I think that was politically smart.
Yeah, and you brought up Junior Tupai, and then the other person in the primary was Briani Kobayashi. You had 4 in the primary, of course, now 2 in the general. Who do those voters who voted for the other candidates who are now not on the ticket, where do you think they go?
You know, that's the big question. I think probably, you know, those voters are looking for change. I think probably 2/3 of them are going to go for Kimo Alameda. I think Roth will probably get 1/3 of those back. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is we have a general election, a presidential election, which means we're going to have a much bigger voter turnout than in the primary. So there's a lot of voters out there who we're really not sure who they're going to support.
You know, we covered a lot of ground, and oftentimes when you get into these types of discussions and conversations, you have to kind of weigh out and balance what is being said and the actual substance that's coming through. Was there one candidate that you felt provided a little more substance overall during the debate and in the responses?
Absolutely. I mean, Mayor Roth knows the details, but he's also been on this job for a while. I mean, he's essentially re-interviewing for a job he already has. I also think that's his personality. I mean, he's someone who communicates in numbers and statistics. So he was stronger on substance, but I don't know that necessarily means you win the debate. I mean, also, a lot about debate is connecting with voters. It's about the style. And I think Kimo Alameda clearly wins on style, right? I mean, he's talking about the urgency of change. And I think Mayor Roth really is, you know, most of his answers are, look, we're trying our best. It's complicated. But there's an old saying in politics, right? If you're explaining, you're losing. And my concern is that Mayor Roth might have done a little too much explaining in this debate.
That's interesting that you say that. And especially, you know, Dr. Alameda bringing up all that union support that he has gotten 3 of the 4 endorsements, SHOPO and those other 2 workers' unions. How much do you think that matters?
Oh, it's absolutely essential to how well Kimo Alameda has done and why Mayor Roth might be in danger, right? You know, I think that without the union endorsements, probably Roth would have a relatively easy victory. But those union endorsements carry a lot of weight on the Big Island, particularly in Gila, where there's a lot of county workers. You know, and in fact, I was surprised at one of the answers Mayor Roth gave in response to that question. I mean, he's become, I think, much more aggressive in saying, look, I didn't give hazard pay, and it was the right thing to do. And he even said, what surprised me a little bit, those union leaders are only after the money. So he's not pulling any punches right now.
You know, during the campaign that we've been tracking, it really has evolved into, at some points, an East versus West Hawaii. And Dr. Alameda is certainly advocating for West Hawaii and showing the disparities that maybe they have. He brought up parks and other things in this conversation, but it has been widely talked about in other debates that they've had together. Do you think that this is a smart strategy by Dr. Alameda?
I think it's a risky strategy. So I think right now, both of these candidates assume they're going to split the Hilo vote about even, and I think that's probably right. Roth tends to do better in Kona, and so I think Kimo Alameda sees this as an opportunity for him to get some of those votes, to take some of those Roth voters and convert them over to his side, or at least to tell people in Kona, look, I'm really for you. Now, I think the question is, has he overplayed his hand a little bit? And I think he might have. I think that, you know, my understanding is there are some folks in Hilo saying, well, what about us? I mean, there's a lot of us, we're voters, we're county workers. Why don't we get some of this love? And so my concern for Kimo Alameda is he's taken what could have been a pretty smart political strategy, but maybe actually has begun to turn off some of his supporters in Hilo.
You know, from seeing them interact and from your analysis thus far, I can't really tell who has the edge in this debate.
I think it's too close to call. I think because Alameda got those union endorsements, because he's running as a change candidate, which means, you know, he can talk about all of his solutions. He doesn't have a track record that follows him. I think it's very close. Normally, I would give the incumbent, Mayor Roth, the advantage, but because of those union endorsements and because Alameda has run a very strong campaign and is a very charismatic candidate, I honestly don't know who's going to win this election.
Wow.
You know, with the issues that plague the Big Island and things that make headlines, certainly one of them was TMT. And I want to just get your thoughts about the response that they each provided about their support of TMT and how big of an issue do you think that will be for voters, if it will be or not?
I think it's still a very big issue on the Big Island, but I think both of them gave very careful answers to that question. I mean, people understand that there's jobs, good jobs connected. I think Kimo Alameda gave a very smart answer, saying that he's more in favor of the 2024 version of TMT. I think his answer about having in the MOU some exact date when the telescope might be deconstructed was a very smart answer. I think he's thought about this a lot, and I really think that that was a very good response to a difficult question in this debate.
The ballots go out, most of Hawaii votes by mail. The ballots are going out this week. What do you expect them to do, and what would you advise them, if you were advising them to do between now and Election Day to actually seal the deal?
Spend all your money. Make sure your supporters are out there sign waving. I mean, I don't think they're likely to be persuading many more voters, so they got to make sure the people who already support them are going to turn out to vote. So I think my understanding is Roth has a little bit more money than Alameda. I think you can expect him to spend the rest of that on getting out the vote for his supporters. But look, I mean, on Hawaii Island, elections are still won door to door. It's still about sign waving. It's still about talking to supporters individually. So I expect that both of these candidates and their supporters are going to be talking to everyone they can between now and Election Day.
Well, let me stay with you for just a second, because does sign waving actually make a difference? I wonder this every cycle. You see everybody out there, but you wonder, does that actually move the needle?
Look, I would, as a political scientist, I would love to give you a careful quantitative answer to that, but I think people expect it, and I think it shows that you're a serious candidate with a lot of supporters. It shows your level of community support. I think particularly on the neighbor islands, it makes a difference.
Well, let's talk about just the campaigning on Hawaii Island alone. I mean, the geographic, makeup of the Big Island creates so much challenges. I mean, how different and difficult is it to campaign on the Hawaii Island?
Oh, it's hard because, I mean, first of all, you're running a campaign probably with less money. You're not necessarily running a lot of TV or radio ads. It's a big place, as you talked about, two different sides of the island that tend to disagree a lot about what the priorities are. And so you need supporters in every community. I think that's the key in campaigning on the Big Island. You need people who are willing to walk the doors in Hilo, in Kona, all over the island. But it's one of the most challenging places to campaign. The only other place I think is harder is Kaka'ako, where you can't talk to anyone because everyone's in a condo.
We know that the presidential election is having a down ballot effect. We saw that this last primary was the lowest in state history, right? I think just over 30% of people actually bothering to vote. We are expecting a higher turnout. What will that affect? What do you expect that to be on these two candidates?
I think it's why both of these candidates are clearly trying to recruit some conservative Republican voters, because I think that there's a lot of Democrats who don't really think Hawaii will matter a whole lot in the presidential election, but a lot of Trump supporters want to show their support for President Trump, so I think they're motivated to come out. And so I suspect that we're going to see, I mean, to the extent that we have a lot of Republicans in Hawaii, I think they're more motivated to turn out in the general than some Democrats. And I think both of these candidates see those as voters that could potentially be persuaded to come and support them.
Well, we are just about to wrap up, but before we let you go, beyond just the Big Island race, what other races just out there do you think are going to be races to maybe just keep an eye on as we head into this election season?
There's a North Shore Senate race, which is going to be very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of very interesting Republican races in central Oahu where Republicans are defending seats. I'm not sure how those are going to go. So those are the ones I'm watching. I mean, I think that for the Republicans, if they can win, it shows that these are strong Republican seats that they can have for several cycles. I think if they lose those seats, then it's going to demonstrate that a couple of those candidates who won, it was sort of a fluke, and they won't be able to, it'll be harder for them to get those seats back. So I think those are the ones to watch.
And it's so funny that you keyed into that, or interesting, because you heard them both not want to say who they're voting for, and Dr. Alameda actually did not commit. He said he's in a split house, and he's still deciding.
That's right. I think that's very strategic of both of them.
Well, we thank you so much, Colin, for always coming in here and providing your insights. We always appreciate talking to you. And we look forward to many more conversations about this election as it draws near. Thanks so much. We also want to give a special mahalo to Mayor Mitch Roth and Dr. Kimo Alameda, and to all the viewers who submitted their questions for the candidates.
Yeah, there's some really good ones in there, and we really appreciate it. A reminder to get out and vote and stay connected to Hawaii News Now, both on air and online, for continuing coverage of election 2024.
We'll see you next week, Tuesday, for another episode of Spotlight Now. Thanks so much for watching. Aloha.
Aloha.